In business, it can be crazy exciting and frightening at the same time. One of the major words that stirs the mind of the new business owner is, will I be able to make money to stay in business? Anybody can start a business, but not everybody stays in business. I started my coaching and speaking firm in March of 2019, and it's been 3.5 years in business. Recently, I've had a lot of friends share about their desire to become coaches. When I first sat down with someone who made money coaching and speaking, I had one major topic in mind. How much money do you make with your clients? How did you get your first clients? What did you charge in the beginning? What do you charge now? In this video, I'll share how I obtained my first few clients as a coach, how much I charged then, and how much I charge now in September of 2022. There are a few topics that are more uncomfortable for people to talk about when it comes to money. You know, it's a topic that when it comes to family, even talking about that with loved ones who you care about, who care about you, and having those upfront conversations about how much money you make. And I remember back, it must have been the fall of 2017. And I remember sitting down with a mentor who's been a mentor for nearly 20 years now. We had a little bit of a gap in there, but I remember him sitting down with me, and he was the only John Maxwell coach that I knew. And I think the John Maxwell team, we now call it the Maxwell Leadership Coach, or the Maxwell Leadership Speaker. And I remember taking him to lunch, and we went to Jim's, the restaurant, and I just wanted to know how much money he was making. I wasn't sure if he was even willing to have those very transparent conversation. But many times what I've learned when it comes to being mentored is it's so pivotal to be willing to ask the question, to be curious and courageous enough to ask the question, yet simultaneously being respectful enough to understand if somebody doesn't want to talk about money. I get it. It's uncomfortable. We sometimes feel like people are going to compare us or judge us. But so I asked the question. I remember Tomas is opening up his journal and is showing me line by line about how much money he was able to make as a coach and as a speaker. And really that conversation was life-changing because it convinced me, and it convinced me eventually a year later, or rather a year and a half later, to go get the Maxwell Leadership Certification myself. And but I just appreciate somebody sitting down with me and having an upfront, candid conversation about money and the kind of money you can make as a coach. And so what my hope is, I often think in terms of NBA basketball players, and there are certain NBA basketball players that seem to really be aiming to lift up the next generation. It's one of the characteristics I love about LeBron James is his element of camaraderie and getting the guys together. I remember hearing the story of the difference between LeBron and Kobe when they were playing in the Olympics together, and LeBron was aiming to get the guys together for breakfast the next day, and Kobe was focused on training. Both were good things to be doing, and they just illustrated a little bit of a different focus. There was another story, another LeBron James story, is when they had invented some of the new technology, the new technology when it came to icing the knees after the games. And supposedly when LeBron first found out about it, he knew immediately he had to get it over to D Wade and Carmelo Anthony so they could have access to the technology as well. And they said that Kobe Bryant had a little bit of a different perspective. He kind of wanted to hold on to the technology. But the point I'm getting to is who I want to be, as a number of my friends have expressed that they want to get into coaching, and they've launched their Instagram page, or they're closing their first few deals. And I want to be somebody who's helping those next group of coaches to elevate their journey. And it's one of the reasons I wrote my coaching book. It was a two-part purpose, which was part of it was to help clients to understand the ins and outs of how I approach the coaching relationship. But also, I also wanted to add value to other coaches so that they could also have another tool in their tool belt to add value to the people in their circle. So when I wrote that book, and I have a couple of them right here. When I wrote this book, the goal was to be able to ultimately add value to the coaches and to potential clients or even to clients. And anyway, I'm saying all of that because I thought I would spend today's video just digging into the ins and outs of like looking back on 3.5 years. Those of you who know, I worked at Nationwide for 7 years and then pivoted into owning my own speaking and coaching business. And then so anyway, so this video is mainly going to be about that. I'll take you through some of the journey. It'll be more storytelling. And I'll close it out toward the end of the video with a few lessons that I think were really important as I kind of reflect on all of them and how it really shaped me along the way, and what I would maybe even the advice I would give myself looking back on what was the most helpful thing that I did and what do I wish I would have done more of looking backward. So let's rewind to March of 2019, and I was starting my business, and we were transitioning away from Nationwide, and I knew eventually I wanted to join Business Network International, and I heard about it, and I think back in my 20s, so a little bit of my background story is that a few friends and we started a moving company in our 20s. And so we had been a part of BNI as a business, as a moving business. And I knew I wanted to join BNI again. So when July came, so if you think about me starting my coaching business in March of 2019, then I decided to join BNI in July of 2019, which was one of the most beneficial business decisions I ever made. And I see my friend Ashley's over here in the chat over on Facebook. So Ashley AL, just so you know, you inspired some of this talk. So this is one of those insights I think was inspired from some of our conversations. So anyway, good to see you in the chat there. So when I joined BNI, and if you don't know what BNI is, I'll give you some little context of how to think through what BNI is when you're thinking about networking groups. Is you have the Chamber of Commerce, which is which we kind of refer to as a casual networking group. In other words, if you sign up and you pay for your membership in the Chamber of Commerce and you don't go to virtually any of the networking events, the lunches or the breakfasts, then really nobody's gonna call you. And if that's what you're looking for, that's fine. Some people are looking for a group or a network that's not as intense, it's not as a strong, not as stern when it comes to that accountability piece, right? So you have the Chamber of Commerce with maybe casual networking. And you have maybe like a Rotary Club that's more like purpose-driven, service-centered networking, where you're coming together, whether you're fundraising or you're serving the community together or you're building each other up in the Rotary space. BNI was different in the sense of there's more intense accountability. There's an expectation not only that you would attend every single week at your lunchtime or your breakfast time, depending on when you were meeting, but also there was an expectation every single week you had one meeting outside of the group meeting to connect and build the roots of trust in the relationships. And I'm talking about BNI. I know some people, you can look it up. There's some people that think about it as a straight cult. They hate it. They can't believe that anybody finds any value from it. But really, my perspective in BNI has been one of the most valuable tools for growing my coaching business. And you're going to hear more of that as we go along. So I want to tell you when I closed my first law firm deal in the fall of 2019, and I'll go ahead and pull up some of the notes so I can kind of track this a little more seamlessly here as we go along. So what I'm going to do here is we get July 2019. and I'm just gonna give you a little bit of the timeline. So join BNI, and then in August of 2019. So if you think about BNI, it's an organization, and I know I explained some of it already, but so every single person that's a member of the chapter, they have the same expectation you do to meet with one another. So you just think about, if you're even exploring the idea of joining the BNI, you might visit before you ever join to see if these are the kind of people you want to collaborate with every single week to help build each other's business up. So I remember the first person I met at BNI, she was a lawyer. And I remember her meeting, and then she was telling me about what she does from an estate planning perspective. And my dad had passed away back in 2003, so it had been 16 years, and we still hadn't worked through his estate. So she was an immediate contact for me to be able to meet with, to maybe even throw business her way. And just think about that. I go in July 2019. The first person I meet is the lawyer that's in the group. And then we set up a meeting, and we're meeting, and I meet with the attorney in the group. And let me go ahead and make this a little bit bigger for the notes of this, so you can see it all here. There we go. I'll put the estate planning attorney of the chapter. Okay, so then we meet. Pretty incredible conversation. And what I mean by that is, when we met, she told me immediately that her vision, her vision was that she said, you can, if you think about focusing exclusively on lawyers in your business, not only would they have the money to be able to compensate you because of their high income potential, but she began telling me some of the data and statistics about depression and alcohol abuse and substance abuse just in the industry. And she even said me, I remember going back home, looking at some of the articles that validated some of this thing. So I remember just sitting down with her, and she said, you should do this only for attorneys. You should focus on attorneys. If I were you, that's how I would do it. So she gives me this vision. Now, I wasn't yet ready to accept it, but that meeting that I had with her went from us just having a conversation to, you know what, I'm going to hire her for my family to take care of my dad's estate. Now, that's going to be really important when we reflect on this. So I'm going to hire her. So I hired her to take care of my dad's estate. I didn't know, and she didn't. I don't even think she knew, which was in 2 months later, in October of 2019, this same attorney was going to be launching her own law firm. So you think about little things like that you just don't really know, but she's going to be launching her own law firm. So this same attorney launched law firm. And now, because I'm in BNI, we had met already. And then two, think about this. I had already been aiming to send business her way before she did anything, before she'd do any business my way. And that's one of those genius tips, not that I invented, it's part of the BNI culture, which is the giver's gain element. So, but I was practicing it before I really even understood how that's a killer, that's a core principle of BNI. So I hired her to take care of my dad's estate. She launched her law firm, and because she launched her law firm, she asked me if I would coach, if I would be the business coach of her law firm. Kind of a big deal. So so we meet, and guess what? So she asked for a quote. All right. So 2019, it's again, I'm in my first year of running my business. She asked for the quote. Now, inside of BNI, there's certain trainings that you have to do. So one of the trainings I went to at one of the hotels, I met with another coach who was also John Maxwell certified, and I asked him, I said, hey, well, how do you go about pricing? And again, here's another eternal principle I want you to take home with you, is the eternal principle is those who humble themselves will be exalted. So when you have two routes before you and you take the humble route, the route of a learner and a listener, and you're asking for advice from other people, it goes, I mean, the impact and value that's delivered back to you just for you being humble and asking and not saying, hey, I know it all. I don't know it all. I haven't been here. I never ran a business before. So let me ask somebody who's been doing it for 5-10 years. So then so I sat down with him at this training during the lunch hour, and I just asked him, hey, can I just ask you questions about how you've gone about building your coaching practice? Great dude. His name's Scott Mader. Sat down with him. He started breaking down to me. He just told me his pricing. And I remember his price was, at least then, was $1,000 for 3 sessions. So, I mean, again, sometimes I'm not fancy at all, and I'm just really, really simplistic. All right. So if this dude is doing $1,000 for 3 sessions, then I'll just do what Scott's doing, you know? So then back to our notes here, we have the first quote. She asked for the quote. I'm like, I don't know, $1,000 for 3 sessions, which again, so Scott, I think he was doing it a little bit differently than I first did it. So I liked the idea of doing 2-hour sessions, which if you do the math on it, then it's like what? It's really $166.66 an hour. So let me see here. So that first quote is, again, it was $1,000 for 3 sessions, 2-hour sessions. So we're at $166.66 an hour. When I talk to non-coaches and we talk prices, sometimes people think prices are bigger than what they are. It's just, again, it's less than some, more than others. But 166, it's a matter of, can something be duplicated? So as we had that conversation, and so she hires me, brings me on, and I was like, oh, like when somebody hires you and you put out a quote, then one of the first thoughts that many times we can have is, oh, well, there wasn't even a negotiation, so maybe I could have charged more. So that's something I kept in mind as new opportunities came to me. So I'll share with you how my being hired by the first 2 doctors, also because of a BNI setting. So we have told you about the law. So this law firm hired me, and this is still the end of 2019 into 2020. So now we'll look at being hired by 2 doctors. So let me kind of note this here. I'm going to put hired by law firm in our notes that we're kind of taking together here. And now, hired by first 2 doctors. Okay, so some of looking at the history of growing your practice and expanding is sometimes you don't actually know all that's going in. So some of this is going to be conjecture or theory of like what I think happened in some of these, and like how I think it happened, because there's so many variables that go into this. But let me explain. So the first time I remember meeting this doctor, I was giving a speech at BNI. So again, back to BNI. I was delivering a 10-minute speech, and I prepared. I mean, I prepared very, very well. There's this philosophy when it comes to speech writing, is that it's so easy to speak for an hour on any topic, but when you only have 10 minutes, the preparation, it's counterintuitive that you actually need to do a lot more preparation to really hone it down and narrow it in, because you don't have as much time to tell stories and have maybe audience interaction. So you really are dialed a lot more in when you only have 10 minutes. So I had 10 minutes, and I remember he was in that speech, because I recorded the speech. I remember he was there So he was able to see that speech. And first time I saw him, met with him, was after the meeting, because I was not only giving the speech, but I was also doing a little bit of the orientation after the BNI meeting. So we had so he was there. We set up a meeting to have a lunch. Again, remember, inside of BNI, the culture and structure is that they believe in meeting. Every single person who's a member meets with somebody else who's a member at least one time every single week. So let me pull up our notes. We have a lunch. So we go to lunch together. We go to lunch near his office. So we start talking about what we do. We're talking about kind of our journeys, our stories. We're just connecting as two human beings. And I remember he asked me about the masterminds I do. He's like, okay, so you do individual, you do small group, you do speeches. Tell me more about the masterminds you do. So I began to tell him about the masterminds, and it's one of the favorite questions you could be asked by a coach is how much do you charge for this service? So this doctor who I'm sitting down at lunch with asked me that question. How much do I charge for? So he asked the favorite question that we love to hear, which is he asked about the price for my mastermind. Another way, he asked me about the group coaching. Again, every time, especially early on, it can feel really uncomfortable in the beginning to be asked about your price, because especially those of us who love coaching. I know, again, my friend Ashley Lakin is here in the mix. And we were talking about this past week. Whenever you're asked for a price for something you're so passionate about that you do it for free, when you're in that transitional space where you're going to begin to charge money for something you willingly did for free for years, because of my background in the volunteering in church, but also being doing some volunteer speeches as I was a supervisor at Nationwide, doing some of their leadership development program and being one of their the trainers and the speakers for those programs. I love doing that. Like before they finished asking me if I would do the speech, I was saying yes. So whether it was doing a speech for a wedding or for a funeral or for the leadership development program at work, it was yes. So anyway, I mentioned that because when people are getting into the coaching space, we can feel almost hesitant and shy about our prices. So I'm mentioning that. So he asked me for the price, and at the time I thought it would be amazing if I could structure the mastermind so that I could make $200 an hour. So what that meant was I told him it would be $200 for, was it 8 sessions? I think it was 8 sessions at the time. So what I figured in my head, DG was thinking I could get 10 people in this group paying $200 each. And I think the way I thought through it is if I had up to 10 sessions. So let's look at that real quick. So if we had 10 sessions in this group, people paying $200 each, if I had 10 sessions, then it'll be $2,000 divided by the 10, right? So that's just $200 an hour. By 10 would be the $200 an hour. Okay, so just so you kind of know the way I was thinking about it. So the doctor asked me for the quote. I said, oh, it's $200 to jump in for 8 to 10 sessions. And then he tells me, look, I can tell more people about you as a coach. He goes, other doctors that I know, I could plug you to see if maybe if he could help me. Again, to think about that, like just having people in your life that are purposefully trying to help you. It's a huge blessing. Again, BNI, that's one of the reasons is if you get into the right BNI with people who have the right mindset, they're aiming to help you grow your business. Now, the goal is always to be able to give first and give more and give before other people give. And I'm going to get to some of that in a minute. But as you can see, back to my notes here, you can see when the first law firm hired me, I was just learning how to do all this. So I said, all right, I ended up at 166 an hour. When the first two doctors hired me, they both paid me $200 each, but it was a 6 a.m. Monday morning sessions. And then the thing about it is that first mastermind, we only got two people. It was two doctors and me. So if you think about that, I was really only making like $40 an hour, which again, like, it's not bad money if that was multiplied across 40, but that it was only 1 hour a week. Just so, again, I'm saying this, there's nothing to brag about that, right? In fact, it's more sad. It's more sad than anything. But in that in that season, that's where I started. It was, okay, well, I'm showing up, I'm doing the preparation, I'm showing up to add value, I'm making an impact, and and if $40 an hour, if that's where we're gonna start, that's where we're gonna start. So again, this is right now, the timeline, we're in January of 2020. So my hope, as I share more of this with you, that you're able to start way beyond where I started. So if I started with a couple of doctors and a law firm and I was making $166 an hour, then I started making $40 an hour. I was aiming for that $200 an hour, but as I share more of the numbers, no, this is where I started. And fortunately, it's not where I am today, because your boy wouldn't be able to survive on that. So let's keep going. So after another business owner hired me. He owns an insurance business, and in the beginning, I think I had 5 people in this mastermind. So let me outline this real quick. So in the first mastermind, and maybe the timeline's a little bit off because this was like in September, October of 2019. So I'm going to give you some information on when people start the coaching program, especially with the John Maxwell team. They're big proponents on adding something of value. Maybe it's a free mastermind first, or it's a free speech you give to an organization, or free one-on-one coaching sessions. So it's free before the fee. So if you think about free before the fee, it's you add value. So what I was doing is I did an 8-week mastermind that started September, October 2019. I had 5-6 people went through it. Let me put this here. 5-6 people went through the mastermind, and let me pull up the notes so you're able to see it. So after the 8-10 weeks that we're together, the idea is they would see the value, and then I would potentially be able to offer them to continue to coach them one-on-one or work with them in a small group. So that wasn't a great, I think it was like 16% as far as like a turnover. So I ended up, of the 5 to 6 people who went through this one mastermind, really only one closed. So one closed for, also again, it was also $200 for 8 sessions, and that the close took place in January of 2020. All right, if you're keeping up with me so far, what we're going through is how I attained my first client, how much I was charging in the beginning, and we're gonna get to all the way up to 2022 this year in September. But if you have questions about rates, charging, if you have questions about any of this breakdown, feel free to put it into the chat, and I'll even put pull you up on the screen to look at your question. I'm using some of the new technology here. But okay, so that was one, only one closed there. And so we had So think about that though. So when this one closed, I had two only, again. I also only had only two people in this mastermind that where one guy paid, one guy didn't. Where one guy paid the 200, which meant that I only made $20 an hour, which was kind of sad at that time. All right, so we have three different versions of, as far as you see the first kind of breakdown. So you have the 166 an hour for the law firm. You have $40 an hour. I was working with these two coaches in the beginning of 2020. I did a free mastermind for 5 to 6 people here. If I highlight this, will you see that? You will see that. Great. And then we went to closed one out of the 6 people who were in that mastermind, and then I was making $20 an hour as I coached those 2 people moving forward. Okay, so you gotta have that breakdown there. The good news was that I closed 2 other deals that January. So then one of the plumbers hired me. Again, he asked for my quote. I previously, as I mentioned earlier, I said, okay, $1,000 for 3 sessions. I thought, okay, it's feeling kind of better. And once you start going through enough of these quotes and figuring out your price point and understanding the value you add, which I'm gonna explain more of that in a little bit here, then you feel like a lot better asking for a lot larger sums of money. Which again, I'm gonna share with you the 10x component of what I just expressed. So the plumber hired me. He asked me for my quote. I told him it's $1,200 for 3 sessions. They are 2-hour sessions, meaning in the one-on-one space, as a one-on-one coach, making $200 an hour. And as you can see, just in a couple of months, I think it was like a month later from the law firm, I was making 166 an hour here. But then again, feeling more confident doing some small group coaching, then I was able to move that up to $200 an hour with the plumber. I also, so here's another story. The law firm owner that hired me, before she launched her law firm, she was working for another attorney. She invited all of the BNI members to it was a book signing. I think that her law firm owner was hosting. So I went to that book signing, and there, one of the financial planners attending asked the attorney who was in my BNI what were her favorite books that helped her grow the most. So, all right, so it's an irrelevant question, especially in the realm of personal development. She hears that question and she immediately says, I gotta introduce you to Derek. She goes, let me introduce you to Derek. So I meet him, we hit it off, great conversation, exchange information. That night or that next day, I send out an email. I send him, we'll call him JW, those are his initials. I sent him, JW, an email inviting him into a 8-week group mastermind, and it's free. Again, this is just add value, show up, add value, display some of the speaking, display some of the coaching. It's over Zoom. He agrees, so he's in my 8-week group. That starts, timeline perspective, that started probably in September, October. So it goes September, October. We finish about December. January comes, and he's like, so JW goes, he wants one-on-one coaching. So guess what? He's asking for a quote. So then I quote him, same as the plumber. We go $1,200 for 3 sessions. We're at $200 an hour. And you can see how some of this can begin to roll into each other. Again, if you're preparing, adding massive value, you're helping people achieve their goals, especially business owners. It's such a great place to coach because you can see the financial impact and the financial benefit of the investment they're making. Many people in the coaching industry, we say we always want people to 10x whatever they pay us. So if somebody's paying me $1,200 for 3 sessions and that ends up being whatever, $4,800 across the year or whatever it is, then the impact of that 4,800, we want them to at least 10x that and at least clear 4,800. Now, one part of the story I mentioned earlier is when I sat down with the attorney in the very beginning, before she even hired me, she told me, and I have it right here. So this meeting was, she said, you should focus only on attorneys. They got the money, they got the need. You would do amazing. Now, I didn't fully, I mean, in my own insecurity, I thought she told that to everybody. So I didn't even process that, and really internalize the power of what she was saying. With a little bit of time she spent with me, she's like, man, you could just help the many attorneys and they have the money. So I wasn't even ready to accept it. That limiting belief, those blocks, I wasn't even ready. But worked with her law firm for a year. And when we looked at the numbers and her goals that she had for the first year, so we looked at it in October or November after we started, because she had the first 3 sessions we did free, and then we did from free to fee. She had surpassed her goal by $120,000. This is very important for my own personal growth and development, right? So we're in the fall of 2020, a full year coaching my first law firm. And then she had surpassed her goal by $120,000. So think about what that did for a young business owner's coach's confidence. It was like, oh my gosh, hold on. If I can help someone who owns a business to surpass their goal by $120,000. And mind you, if you totaled up what she ended up paying that first year, it was somewhere between $5,000 and $6,000 total. $5,000 to $6,000 is what she paid. She paid for that first year of coaching. So as a young business owner, as a young coach, seeing that my value, it's not just $166 an hour. It's not just $5,000-$6,000. Now I started seeing that, I could add a tremendous amount of value to people in the mix. And once you, again, for all of you who are coming into the coaching space and you have doubts, worries, fears, and insecurities, I had those too, especially when the law firm asked me to coach. I was like, what? The first insecure thoughts were, I've never done that before. Who am I? I don't know anything about building a law firm, but I did know about personal development. I did know the power of finding mentors. So think about this. As the coach, depending on your modality, my modality is that it's person or client centered, and you help draw out the power from within them and help direct them to even their own mentors in their industry. It doesn't mean you have all the solutions, but you know the solutions to get the solutions. So you may not know how to build a law firm. You might not know how to build a plumbing business. You may not know how to build a financial planning business. But if you know how to help them to help themselves, to get the mentors, to execute, to deal with the limiting beliefs, to map out their goals, and then to move forward to address roadblocks that come in the way. That's the beauty of the coaching industry is I don't have to be an expert in law or law firms or plumbing and financial planners, because there are people who are experts in law firms, plumbing, and financial planning, and those are the people they should go to for that technical insight. But as the coach, I'm helping to draw out the power from within. So if you understand that, then you understand the value you can help people to 10x the amount of money they're putting into you. Like your value can skyrocket. And again, and especially when those of us who grew up not spending a whole lot of money, when I would see 166 an hour, like to me that was, even again, this is me out the gate, there was some kind of uncomfortability, because I had been mentoring people for years without charging people any money, especially in the church world. We have discipling relations. We meet every single week, and we help them to grow and mature and to move forward in their faith and to move forward in their impact and in their relationships. That was all for free. So anyway, to bring this back to the to some of the good stuff. So some of the good stuff is we're going through the pricing and structure. So where are we at? So let's move into 2022. My one-on-one coaching rate has increased to $700 an hour as a one-on-one coach. And again, even with this, here's what I'll share with you is we can think that that it just sounds like an absurd amount of money, but once you begin to understand the impact that you can deliver and the results you can help bring into people's lives, you understand that $700 is such a small amount of money for the impact you're about to have on people's lives. So let me share with you, probably, I think this is my biggest closed deal to date. And so where that's been able to get to as of now is $2,400 an hour as a small group coach. Again, I don't say that to impress you. I just say that to impress the principle on you is you can start, as I mentioned up here, you might start your business making a measly $20 an hour. That's what I was doing for that small group. You might start your business working with doctors, and at that point in time, I was doing $40 an hour. You might start as a one-on-one coach making $166.66 an hour. That's just where I was. You know what? I wanted to show you all that. So I was showing the 166 is here. The $40 an hour is here working with the doctors. The $20 here is working with two people. One of them was paying. One of them was doing some other social media stuff for me in lieu of paying me. This one, the plumber, was $200 an hour. The financial planner is $200 an hour. I began to see the impact that I could have by seeing the $120,000 that she surpassed her goal by. Then in 2022, again, I've skipped ahead quite a bit, is beginning to charge for $700 an hour as a one-on-one coach. And then for the $2,400 an hour as a small group coach, I just want to tell you how that happened. So the data or the information that I have that how this came about is that doctor that I mentioned earlier that I was working with, we did one series of one-on-one coaching. Small group coaching with the other doctor. Then he brought in a few other people, and I coached them as well. Then he asked me to coach his sister, and then his son, and some more of his staff members. So let me kind of chart this out so you kind of have that perspective. So it was an 8-week coaching. He paid $200 for the 8 sessions. That's Jan 2020. Then He did a 10-week coaching package. I don't actually remember how much I charged here. Um, Actually, no, I remember. So, of course, the pandemic hit 2020, and what he did was, um, well, what I offered, I said, during the pandemic, there's a lot of worry, fear that people had in business, and I offered to do some free coaching for his staff. Again, you just think about that simple gesture of offering to give and help somebody else. So I did some free coaching for some of his staff. There's this concept that there ain't no such thing as free, and I've seen that in the coaching world because sometimes you go, oh, well, I really want to get paid. Well, and you will, but it's not always the way you think. So let me finish this story. So free coaching for his staff in the middle of the pandemic. Then summer 2020, coach his son, sister, staff, and a few others in a small group. Then from there, one of the people who attended the summer session, I didn't realize she was a leader in charge of a big budget from a leadership team in the DFW area. So then she asked me for a quote. Mind you, this is fall 2020. We get it. I don't even know how to quote an organization at this point because I've been really working with small business owners as opposed to, again, organizations that have these giant budgets. So I just mentioned, well, actually I reached out to a mentor of mine. I said, hey, like, how much do I charge? I don't want to, undersell myself, undercharge, and leave money on the table. But I don't want to disrespect anybody by asking for an arm and a leg, So how do I navigate this? So his suggestion to me was ask for at least $500 an hour. And then so he said that, and for whatever reason, that gave me confidence to ask for $600. So I said, all right, let me let me ask for $600 an hour, and then see what happens. Did they counter offer? Did they negotiate? Did they have some pushback? Nope. They just accepted the offer. And I was like, oh, interesting. And again, whenever that happens, they say psychologically you do ask. Oh, maybe I could have asked for more because there was no counter offer, no negotiation. So I worked with that leadership team for a year, and then they asked me for a quote. And so I worked with them for a year. They asked me for a quote, fall 2021. They asked for another quote. Then I'm like, all right. So again, not only am I coaching, working with small groups, working one-on-one, I had written my first book, my marriage book. I'd written a coaching book, and I feel like I've written a coaching book. In my head, that's a lot more value, right? Which don't think you have to write a book to be able to be worth a lot of value. There's plenty of people who have never written a book, but they're able to charge a ridiculous amount of money. But anyway, so let me go back to it. So we're at fall 2021. They asked for another quote. My confidence has grown. I'm thinking through, and I'm going, you know what? I feel good about asking for $1,000 an hour, which was like insane in my head to think about. I could potentially do something that I would willingly do for free, and I'd willingly do with so much passion, that I'd willingly do so much preparation. But I was going to ask for $1,000 an hour, and they accepted it. No counter offer, no negotiation, just accepted it. Pretty crazy. Now, A year goes by. I work with them for another year. They tell more people about me, and then somebody else asked me for a quote. So now we're in 2022. Now we're in this year. They asked me for another quote. People that they know, and they asked me as well. So now I'm asking $2,400 an hour. Now, mind you, my goal so I was like looking at my goals and going, all right, so I'm 36 now. I'll be 37 next week. But I'm 36, and in my own little goal, I said, by the time I'm 40, I want to be able to say I've made $1,000 an hour. Now, I got that deal before I turned 36. I was 35 when I got that deal. So then, just so you know, like, you just, I began to, grow past my own goals that were, again, 4 years in advance. I know hey, my friend AL, she talks about the quantum leaps. I don't really like the phrase, but quantum leaps, right? So the quantum leap out of that whole space of 40 years old charging $1,000 an hour to being able to charge $2,400 an hour. That's the price that I asked for. And then just to give you that perspective, that was accepted. So I say all of this as we bring this in for a landing. You never really know the budget that another organization is working with. I remember talking to a friend who was, big into this organization, and he was telling me that there are so many organizations that literally neglect $600,000 of discrepancies where they can't find out where that money was, and it costs them too much money to figure it out, so they just keep it moving. But when you begin to hear stories like that, or hear that people are in charge of $2 million budgets, or a phone call that I had, which was somebody told me I have $19,000 that I need to spend on coaching. Think about that. $19,000 that they need to spend on coaching, like that. Those words, the juxtaposition of those words, like, was insane. But you don't know. I don't know what budget organizations are working with, and so you would only cheat yourself. Again, people who are stepping into this coaching space and are thinking about getting it, even as a side hustle, you don't know the value that you can add and how that can 10x. I think about even going through getting a leadership position when I was at Nationwide. I remember sitting down with somebody who was an operations manager, or she was a quality manager at the time, and us just talking it through. She helped me to move my salary up $20,000 for the year, and I had the role for 5 years. That's $100,000 worth of mentoring she gave me. Like, you just don't realize the power of that. So here's a few observations before we close out. Number one, and you don't have to do it with BNI, but here's a few observations. Number one, go to group networking meetings. That was one of those principles that simply helped me to meet other people who were in business who could potentially be looking for coaching. Go to those meetings. Now that doesn't just mean a BNI. It might be Chamber of Commerce. There was a book release at a law firm that I went to. That's where I met JW, who I mentioned earlier, and he ended up becoming a client, and we've done a bunch of collaboration together. Number two, meet people one-to-one. This is so basic, but asking people to coffee, lunch, podcast, or whatever it is. It could be over Zoom if you're more conservative and you don't like. Again, whenever it's like men and women, I think that's a situation that kind of comes up with how do men and women get together, especially if the men are more conservative and if they're married and if the women are married. Zoom still works, right? Or even like a Zoom podcast is something I've done with a bunch of women. So and that works just fine. So meet one-to-one. Nothing really builds that trust and learning and being able to ask questions and really understand people except for meeting one to one and learning somebody's life story and being able to have that compassion, that empathy to really just be a great listener, student of their story. All right, number 3, help other people first. Help other people first. I know the scarcity you can have when you just start is you feel like you gotta make money. And my mom and I talked about this concept that it seems that people can almost smell desperation on you when you're desperate. So one way, let's say you really are virtually desperate for business and to grow. Sometimes when you're desperate, you actually shoot yourself in the foot because you're not looking to give, you're looking to take, you're looking to receive. Find ways to help people. I've listed out 19 ways for you to help people that are absolutely free. That's everything from sharing their business posts to putting it into your story or putting it into your page or going over to their LinkedIn, giving them endorsements, recommending them, sharing, emailing they're doing a conference, email their conference out. There's so many ways to help people. If you maintain that abundance mindset, then you have the mindset of there's so many ways you could help. You don't have to even have money. There's so many free ways to help. If you have the mindset to give, you'll see opportunities to give everywhere. So help people first. And number 4, go wide and go deep. There's an expression in the in networking world. We talk about they don't just have a pool of your network or a lake of your network, a mile wide and an inch deep. But it's also just not a mile deep and an inch wide. It's actually both. You go wide and you go deep. So that means you build out, you build out connections with people, but it's not just in group settings, but it's also with one-to-one. That's where you really get a chance to get, like I mentioned earlier, it's where you get to go deep. But you keep up with meeting new people by going wide and bringing a lot of new people into your circle. When I've taught this before, I've taught about it. You step into the line of sight. There's a phrase that we use in business. Do they know you, like you, and trust you? Know you is do they actually know that you exist? Do they know that you're on the planet? That's part of going wide. But then once they know that you exist, what do they know about you? I've used this expression before when I was training some new hires. When it's people use that expression, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Well, it's both. It's not just, but it's also just not what you know, it's who you know, but also who knows you. But it's not just who knows you. People can know bad things about you, but it's who knows what about you. Who knows what about you? What characteristics are you known for? Some basic things that anybody can do. You could be known for just being a great listener, be great at being compassionate, at being understanding, at being encouraging. Those are things that virtually anybody could do with purposeful effort. You don't have to be the wittiest, the smartest, the funniest. You could just be somebody who's the best listener. And simple things like that make a major impact. But anyway, this is part of a new series I'm doing. Is I want to document more of my journey. I feel like if I would have been able to tell myself that I could make $2,400 an hour in the beginning, I would have not even been able to believe or conceive that was possible. Yet here we are. But I just want to document more of my journey. But again, I want to help other coaches who are coming up. And again, if you're beyond me and you have tips, put those in the comments. If you have questions about any of this, feel free to put it here. If you want some more personal investment, you can join our Patreon over at MaximumThrive.com. And depending on where you're watching this, I know it's streamed. I think it's streaming on Twitch and LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. If you're not watching it on YouTube, consider going to subscribe to me over on YouTube. Here's the little. Let me see if I can pull that up. Maybe I can't. Oh, there we go. Consider subscribing over on YouTube. I think if you see it right there, 0. I think we have like 2 subscribers, but it's my new channel. I'm aiming to build up. Anyway, you all have a good night. We'll see you on the next video. I'm aiming to do one video every single day, so hold me accountable, and we'll see you on the next one.